wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen. Hello, welcome to She Became Visible. Once again, my microphone and my camera are not working, so I'm having to use the microphone and the camera on my MacBook. So that's why the words in my mouth are not coordinating, but that's all right. Because today, I just want to introduce you to a podcast that I recently did with Erika and Jamie on Erika's podcast, which is called an Exmo and an Evermo Walk Into a Bar. I will put a link in the description so that you can find them. And Kate was out doing a little R&R, and Erika asked if I would be willing to be a co-host. And I was like, yeah, of course I would. And she was kind enough to have me on as a guest so that I could introduce myself. And unfortunately, the sound was a little wacko. And so they're in the process of trying to edit that. And then I will post that as well. But then the week following, I was actually a co-host with Erika, and we interviewed Jamie. And so I'm going to share with you that podcast because these are just two amazing people. And Jamie has an amazing story to tell. And I was so privileged to be a part of this interview. So let me turn it over to Erika and Jamie. I hope you enjoy this podcast. And then I will come on afterwards to say goodbye.
We are hopeless, selfish creatures, and we need a savior.
She was a total heathen. All right, we're doing a podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of
An Exmo
And an Evermo
Walk into a Bar.
I know it looks a little bit like we have the exact same guest as last week, but actually what we're doing is a little switcheroo. So you may remember Renee from last week. She is actually going to be the co-host with me this week. And Jamie is going to be our guest because she has a story to tell as well. And some of you actually may know her from Mormon Stories because you are on Mormon Stories.
Oh, it's been years. 6 years
ago.
Yeah.
But people might remember.
Yeah. At the time, people definitely knew. It was, I'll just give a quick story real quick.
Yeah, please. That's what we're here for.
Yeah,
So,
okay, so I had done the Mormon Stories podcast, and I didn't think it was that big. It was more like about getting my story out, but the ex-Mormon community is so like niche. I just didn't really expect anybody to recognize me in a random space. So I was in Mesquite picking up weed, right?
As you do.
At a dispensary. This was years ago again, right? It's like the last place you want somebody to like recognize you, but at least at the time for me, right?
Weed.
Yeah, right. So I'm like walking out of the dispensary, and I do hear someone's like, Jamie, and I was like, turn around, and he's like, I just watched your Mormon Stories podcast. Like, it was great. It was just like a dude. Anyway,
nice.
Yeah,
and you also, you never know like who you're gonna run into.
I know.
What they're gonna say.
I know, and it's in Mesquite of all places, right?
I don't know where Mesquite is.
Oh, it's like,
is it like the backwoods of? Is it in Utah?
No, so it's well, if you go to southern Utah, so St. George, and then you drive an hour and a half south. So it's between Mesquite and between Las Vegas and St. George.
Oh, okay.
Just
Got yeah.
See,
Anyway,
I was
so-
hoping you were going to say I was in Mesquite in a weed shop and I ran into John DeLynn.
No.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Honestly,
Dang.
And he was like, "You need to be on my
Yeah,
back.
No,
exactly.
no. Yeah.
Bring
no.
the weed."
Yeah. So maybe you've seen it, but yeah, it's been a long time. Things have changed.
Yeah, for the better.
Yeah.
Jamie is one of our friends. I know her through my husband. You work with my husband, and your wife works with my husband.
Yeah.
Which is how we know you. So I know a little bit of your story, but why don't you just tell us your journey from Mormon to where you are now,
Where I am
which is
now.
pretty different.
Yeah. So for a long time, I considered myself ex-Mormon for like 3 years. And now at this point in my life, I just don't really think about it a whole lot. It's funny because when so my wife's mother, so my mother-in-law was in town, and we were driving through downtown Salt Lake, and she just wanted to know about the history of Mormonism and so many things. Like, she was curious, right? She's from Washington and lives in Arizona now and just knows nothing about it. And just the amount of like, Joseph Smith, yeah, that just pours out of my mouth. It's like I forget about all of this programming in my brain, and I was really bitter for a long time. So start back at the beginning. I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, LDS. My family was LDS, extended family LDS. The funny thing about Oregon for me is that people always say, well, Mormons are different in Oregon. It's like you're dealing with Utah Mormons, and that's like harder. For me, like, there's definitely challenges, but there's more of a persecution complex towards Mormons, LDS people in Oregon. And so there was a lot more like radicalism growing up, at least
like,
peripherally.
Like Mormons were more persecuted, or
Yes,
more like
yeah, because they
weren't the main.
They were like, oh, I'm the only Mormon, so I have to like make a
I'm
point.
the only Mormon in my high school.
Yeah, or you would get like,
so they
blah,
weren't
blah.
persecuted. They just needed.
They
to,
had a
like,
persecution.
uphold
Felt
the
it.
Lord.
Yes.
Got
okay,
it.
yeah.
That sort of makes
Yeah.
sense.
And you'd get more sort of like fringe beliefs. Like my bishop at the time, right? He would like charge the ward to not celebrate Halloween, stuff like that. So like stuff that Mormons don't typically subscribe to.
Yeah.
He would just make up rules. Anyway,
Whoa.
so
to not celebrate Halloween, because here I was surprised. That
yeah,
like the
it's
Halloween
totally
capital
it
of the
is.
world.
I knew, like, I dated someone who was Pentecostal a long time ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we couldn't do Halloween at all." But then I got here and I asked the Mormons that I was working with, I was like, "Do you guys do this? What can I expect?" And they were like, "What? Of course!" And it is the biggest Halloween here, so it's
beautiful.
weird that in Oregon that you can't do.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of
When I went to Swiss Days for the first time, and they had a whole Halloween vendors and things like that, and the women were walking around in these custom made witch dresses, and that they had.
Yep.
It was. I was like, I love it. I tried to go back to Oregon and do like a witches' night out, like they have here.
Right.
People are like, we don't.
Yeah. I mean,
no. So it's the most
thing here.
It's such a dichotomy. It's like, wait, but you have no.
So interesting.
I think. I don't want to get too much into my like weird theories, but I do think there's like a level of suspension of disbelief that you have when you're so embedded in like the fantasy of a religion that really holds space for fantasy.
Other
and
fantasy.
Like, exactly.
Great.
And
I
playing
think that's
pretend.
great insight.
And then that coupled with a lack of sort of vices and traditional ways to like, get your heart rate going and be interesting and stuff, so Mormons get really in, besides like soda, right? And axe throwing, they get really into holidays.
Yeah,
exactly.
So right,
soda,
throwing and soda,
and sugar,
and
anything
sugar.
sweet,
or energy drinks, Diet Coke. Like every elementary school teacher here is addicted to Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And it would make it would make sense that that Halloween would be a big thing, because that's all about the sugar and the candy.
Yes, sugar,
candy.
Yeah.
And I remember we'd bring it in, like we would have, my husband and I would get a whole bunch because we live in an area with lots of kids here in Daybreak, but we'd have a lot left over usually. So I'd bring it into work, poof, gone.
Yeah.
We were like,
But
how is
Jamie,
that going
that's
so
such a great insight, because I never thought, okay, if you believe in angels, golden books, and evil spirits being, exhorted out, right? Then of course the witchcraft I mean, Joseph Smith was the occult.
Yeah.
He practiced the
Right.
occult. So it is kind of webbed in there that I never even put the two together.
I mean, there's
So
there's
it's
definitely
good.
like a thin line there that when I was LDS, so I'll actually get there. There's
Yes.
a good progression. So
when you were
She's like,
5,
let's
I
talk.
go back to when you
so
were 5.
I grew up in Mormonism, just kind of did the thing. I'm definitely the kind of person where if I commit to something, I want to really commit to it. And I spent my childhood and like early teens trying to understand Mormonism and slowly feeling disillusioned by it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was some issues with my family. My mother was excommunicated
Oh.
when I was younger, and she actually was rebaptized and joined the church. But at the time, I was like, "What is going
Can
on?"
we ask what she was excommunicated for?
I mean, it was basically the sin next to murder, so to speak. If you think of like,
Yeah, no, I've heard.
Mormonism. Not murder. My mom is, and my mother is a wonderful person, but it was made
murdered someone.
Yeah, to not
Just
reveal
joking.
too right. Yeah, to not reveal too much like
Yeah,
about her
yeah,
story.
yeah.
I it to me it was like, well, she's still my mom, but she became a villain to so many people, her family. And so I saw that unfold. Life really changed for me when I was 15, and I had all these questions. I remember going to church, and there was somebody giving a talk about how she had just traveled the world, like Asian countries specifically. And I haven't traveled a whole lot. It's one of my regrets so far in my life. It's like the goal of the future, but I was always interested in like different cultures. And she was giving a talk about um how she had visited like this Buddhist temple and how it was so beautiful and intricate, and everybody was so like committed to their faith, but she just felt this profound sadness because she knew that they didn't have the truth. Yeah.
Whoa.
They didn't have you knew exactly where I was going with that. And I just remember in that moment, I was 15 years old. I got up and I walked out of sacrament meeting. I went home and I stopped. I was like, I'm done going to church, right? It was a very personal, like, this is fake.
What clicked? Like, what made the click?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that weird?
Why
Yeah,
were you
like-
able to see the hypocrisy at such a
I
young
don't know.
age?
I think it was just a build up. And I think a lot of people really do, like, but they just kind of walk away. And for me, it was definitely like, I was just trying so hard, and I don't know. It's like the stars aligned.
It just made
occurred
sense
to
all
me.
of a sudden.
Yeah,
And
it
it was-
occurred to me in this moment. It was like, you know what? Fuck you for saying that their cultures don't.
Yeah. I had a similar, like different, but similar epiphany. I grew up Episcopalian and super easy. It's Catholic light. My church was love and peace. There was no trauma whatsoever. It was very much like God loves you. It was Jesus based,
Yeah.
when we had services and whatnot and communion and that, but it was all about like Jesus loves you, came to earth, died for our sins, whatever. But there was a time when I was about the same age, 14 or 15, I started learning about other world religions. And before that, I was like, yeah, they're other religions. They're dumb. They're not real. They're wrong. But then when I started learning about them a little bit more, I was like, wait a minute. If I were born over there,
You would believe the same
this
thing.
is, and I would think my religion, and I was
Exactly.
like, bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing. It's over.
Psychology. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it came crumbling down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I'm like kind of getting it too. I was like,
The
looking at
allergies.
this.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
No,
like,
you're good.
There's something blooming here, and I'm like, I have a
I think-
stash of tissues.
My hair is
Sorry.
definitely getting in my face
But
too.
I'm like, I'm not crying. I just have like crazy allergies. So
bad.
sorry.
Episcopalian.
I want to go back. No, I don't.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I just wanted to be a normal teenager after that point, and I really.
And where are you in the family?
Oh, so I'm not middle. I'm like peripheral to middle. So I have an older brother. He's 2 years older, and then 3 younger sisters.
Okay.
And then I also have a younger sister who was born the same year as my daughter. So
Okay.
Whoa.
yeah,
Okay.
which is definitely anyway.
So you're like I said, 15. You're going,
Yeah.
oh, this is just garbage.
Yeah, right.
But you've got an older brother.
Yeah,
And so did you express this or did you keep it inside?
I expressed it to him. Actually, I didn't like get into the nuances of it, but I was definitely like what's the word? Like, I had a lot of angst, right? At the time. And so I did I mean, I stopped going to church, right?
Oh,
And
you
I told
did?
my
Okay.
mom, like, I was not going to go to church. I was
And did you
done.
tell her why?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was something
Yeah.
about it was definitely more charged, like
Yeah.
I just can't handle like the
Hypocrisy or
yeah, the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
But she was
Interesting.
excommunicated at the time.
Yeah, well, so
was
she
she like,
was
"Yay"?
she was actually she
Come
was
with me.
she was rebaptized, bless her heart, right? Like rebaptized within
no.
a year or two
Uh,
of getting excommunicated. So she went through this whole process, and with my stepfather, she converted him and rejoined the church, and then so they continued to go to church for the entirety of my teen years. I'm gonna kind of speed run some of this stuff. So I was not LDS. I was actually really strongly. I had a lot of strong feelings about it, and my high school girlfriend was very LDS.
in
high school.
Portland.
No, so
Oh,
I'm skipping some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're jumping
My God,
around.
I'm getting yeah. So we did move to Utah when I was in high
Okay,
school. Yeah.
okay.
And then yeah, so normal. I went to Woods Cross High in Bountiful,
Okay.
and she went to Bountiful. Her twin sister was my best friend, and I met her through that. And we started dating pretty seriously, semi-seriously. And she was LDS, and we would argue like a lot about it, right? And I after a while, right? I just got so tired of arguing with her, and then we went off to college. And I really missed her a lot. We decided to kind of go our separate ways for college because we were going to different places.
You're both LDS, so did you both go to BYU?
No.
Okay.
Well, and you just left, right? At this point.
Yeah, at this point, I was not part of the church. Yeah,
Oh, that's right. Okay.
yeah, and
But you hadn't done anything. People didn't take their names off the records.
yeah, no,
You just quit going.
no. I just stopped. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we went to different colleges and stuff. I missed her a lot. I was like, you know what? I will try it again, and we can be together.
I didn't know this part of your story.
I was like, yeah, right. So
this is like a whole like.
yeah, it's the whole thing. Yeah, and this was when I was 18 years old. Yeah, so this was 3 years after I had walked away from the church.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I did that with her. Part of the thing was like, well, it's time like to go on a mission, right? If you're going to be
Did she?
Mormon.
Was she part of that too? Like,
Yeah.
And are you going on a mission?
well, and she was going to go on a mission too. She was like,
Oh.
we should work on going on missions.
Oh, so this is in 2000.
yeah, this was right after the age lowered
Okay.
for women.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like the year the age lowered. When was that? It wasn't
Was
20.
it 18?
No, it must have been
Nelson
2012.
Dewey? I can't remember.
It must have been 2012.
I definitely
because I graduated high school in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All
it
right.
must have been around that time. Anyway, so I go back to church. I just dive full in, right? I got like my patriarchal blessing. We were going really often. At the same time, I was also in a very serious relationship, which has some connotations for like any normal young person, right?
Okay.
That is contrary to what the church teaches. So we go on missions. Okay, right? I get sent out on a mission. I was called to Melbourne, Australia, speaking Mandarin. I didn't get there, so wait for it.
Okay.
She went to Atlanta, Georgia,
And spoke Chinese. No.
yeah, speaking Mandarin as well. No,
Yeah.
no. At the time, my
Yeah.
brother's on a mission too,
Yeah.
so that definitely like fueled some things. And I wanted to make. I didn't have a huge support system anymore. I've kind of lost everything at this point. Just had my friends, and they were not really like good friends. It's complicated. So, going on missions. The inevitable happens, right? So when you're in the MTC, they just come down on you. So
Oh, and
hard.
they want you to confess.
Yeah, they want you to confess. Yeah.
Yes.
So I told them what happened.
MCT for
Yeah.
our audience.
MTC. So the
MTCC,
missionary.
I don't even know.
Yeah, so the missionary training center.
Whenever I hear
Yeah.
about that, it reminds me of like the Red Center in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, right.
It
Yeah.
goes
Well,
back
it
to-
is very,
Yeah.
it's very like
And
factory.
that confuses me because in order to go on a mission, you've had an interview with the bishop, you've had an interview with the stake president, but they get those kids in the MTC and they grill them.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, oh, we already know that you lied to your stake president and bishop to get here, so we're going to get the
Yeah.
truth. Why?
Well, they say
You're
things.
there.
They're literally in class for 8 hours a day,
Yes.
7 days a week. And I was speaking Mandarin, so I was going to be in the MTC for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so after week 3, And constantly, you know, they say things to you in class that are like, if you haven't confessed every single thing,
Yeah.
then you would be worse off to God than if you serve your
It
mission
just
and don't
blows
tell
my
anybody.
mind.
You know, it's just
And
constant.
there's kids out there that
Yeah.
are like, I don't think I did anything, but maybe
Yeah.
when I was sleeping.
Or they reach, yeah.
You
So
know,
I sit down and I'm gonna have to like skip a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But right, so part of that confession is I sit down with one of the district presidents in the leader or in the MTC, and he's like, I need to know every like sexual sin that has been
I don't see
part of your
this.
life as far back as you can remember.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Everything.
Oh my gosh.
Look at all the hairs on my
Right?
arm.
I know.
Ew.
Yeah.
And you know they're taking that
Yeah.
information
Because
and
I don't
Yeah, I know.
understand the
Using it.
Yes,
purpose of
abusing.
that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So he
there's no ew.
slaps a
What
notebook
happened to
down on the
repentance?
table. Yeah.
What about I've already spoken with the
I know.
bishop and I've repented, but they
Yeah.
want you to bring it back up.
Yeah, right.
God.
So I like tell him everything. And if that's my one regret, like one big regret, is if I could go back and just tell him to fuck off. Like, you know, like suck it and just walk out of the MTC.
It's almost like they're getting
Yeah.
off on it.
Yeah, it does.
Definitely.
It
They're
does-
packing that away.
It does
and
seem
using
like
it
that.
later.
I agree. So I wait 2 weeks. They send me home. They call.
They sent you home.
Yeah.
Because of your sins?
Yeah.
And what does that
Yeah.
what
So-
does that
Right. So they send me home and they call my girlfriend's mission president.
Oh,
right?
Let's destroy as
Now,
many lives as we
Her
can.
mission president is, and I don't want to say too much because this is not my story to tell, but
Right.
just her mission president was somebody that she grew up with, knowing very closely, and he was serving in Atlanta, Georgia. So he was always like a, you know, like a dude who she
father
like, yeah, like a father figure kind of person. And they tell her everything that I said.
Oh,
And then he calls her and asks her about everything that I said
my
in detail.
gosh.
And she's sitting there like, I've known you since I was a baby. And you're like, you know all this stuff about me? It's crazy. So they send her home too.
Ew, they
Yeah.
sent
Oh
her.
no.
Yeah. So they sent both of us home. Right?
For doing like normal
Yeah.
human
Normal teenage
teenage stuff.
Yeah. No, totally normal stuff. And I wanted to be there. I was like, I want to do this. Like, I don't want to go home. And they're like, no, you're not ready. So they send you home and then they want you to repent or whatever and then go back and
Right.
serve your mission. That's like the goal, is that you do that. Anyway, skipping a lot. I could talk for hours. Like the
All
story
your
is
ex-mo
sick.
people or never mo people are just on the floor. On the floor. What?
It's
They
great.
always are. Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever they hear stuff like this, they're
Yeah.
just like, and I hear from my friends who are like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Right.
That's bananas. Anyway,
It
go
is
on.
bananas.
Go
And
on.
no, I mean it's sorry. And I'm definitely going to talk a lot during this because I'm trying to fill in a lot.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, please do. It's fascinating.
we try to continue to go to church and do that thing, and we end up getting married. And there's a lot of like family pressure. It's like, well, if you guys don't go back on your missions, then you guys either need to get married or break up.
Oh
And
my
we're like, okay, fine, we'll get married. So we do that.
That's a good reason to get married.
Yeah,
Pressure
yeah,
from your family.
yeah.
At 18.
And yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do
I mean,
this.
we were.
You're 18.
Yeah.
We were 19 when
Yeah.
we got married. Yeah.
I know what my boyfriend when I was 19 would be perfect for me. Just joking. It would be a disaster.
Yeah. Well, and it's for the better. Like we have a child together, and I'm very grateful for that because our child is fantastic. She's wonderful, and I respect her as a parent, and it's mutual for the most part. And so,
And can I just say, I know your kid. I don't really like kids. I'm a bad woman. Like I'm not super maternal, but there aren't many kids that I like, and yours is one of them. She is just, she's
amazing.
awesome. She's
Right?
amazing. She's
Yeah.
really smart. She's like very adaptable. She's very independent. She's just great and thoughtful, and she's an
Yeah.
interesting person. And she gave me a nickname
Oh no.
that I
God,
may
what was it?
change. Roria.
Roria.
It's like I want to change my name to Roria
Yeah.
instead of
Such a princess name.
Oh,
Like
it's so
a powerful,
well,
like
and it's like
warrior.
roar.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
like great. And she just came up with it on the top of
Yeah.
her. She was like, your name is Roria.
She's
And I was
just,
like, I
leaning
love you.
people. Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's a pretty cool.
She's
I mean,
amazing.
if there are any psychologists listening to this, they must be just pulling their hair out
Yeah.
to see what your life would have been like having served in Australia,
Yeah.
learning a language, and then and her as well.
Yeah.
You know, the experiences that she would have had for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
and taken away
Yeah.
because of a little petting and a little
Yeah.
teenage
Normal stuff.
normal stuff.
Normal stuff.
Let's ruin their lives.
Yeah.
And that will teach them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, the mentality behind that, it just goes to show that when these men are called into positions that have no training,
Yeah.
no indication of how the brain works or anything like that, but they're called into positions of power and they ruin people's lives.
Yeah. They just abuse that power. And then they do it and they feel better for it. They feel like it's pious.
Yeah.
I mean,
they feel very.
I don't know if you've heard Jim
Yeah.
Bennett's story, but he has the same story. He talks about how he went on his mission and the mission president was like, all right, how many times do you masturbate?
Yeah. They always do that.
Yeah.
They always do
And
that.
when he
I
said,
know.
nah, I've never done that.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, nice try.
Yeah.
And they were on his case continually until they finally said, well, we know you're lying, but you won't admit it. So there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
I so wish
Yeah.
someone would say back to them, how the fuck many times do you masturbate?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like I wish someone would just come back
Yeah.
with that and just have them be like, because
So, I mean,
they do.
Yeah, but they socialize you. So even worse, and I want to get back to,
Sorry.
Yeah.
to centered, but
We talk a lot.
no, it's good. It's good. There's just a lot to tell. So but I do have to say about that. They have been asking me, and they ask children this since they're 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that they had asked me that my entire life. I remember sitting outside of bishops' meetings, just like anxious whether or not you had a problem, because they were going to ask you something that was like sexual and
totally
none of their
inappropriate.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
Inappropriate.
yeah,
Wrong,
with no other
wrong,
adults in the
wrong.
room, that, you know, it's like a 40, 50-year-old man and an 8-year-old boy or girl.
And 90% of these kids are like, I don't even know what that word means.
Yes, exactly.
And they have to go home and look it up. And
Or
go,
they tell you.
I
Yeah.
haven't done that, but I might try it now.
Yeah, right?
Sounds fun.
So
Exactly.
anyway, so get married, and then we were doing the Mormon thing. That's when we moved to St. George. I was part of the ward and like tried to make it work, but it made me a worse person. Like I tried to do the Mormon thing and tried to be like the man that
Now,
they
where were
want
you in your
to
career
be.
at this point?
I mean, I
You're
was
in
going
St.
to
George.
school.
You're still going to school.
Yeah, for associate degree.
Yeah.
It's Utah Tech now, but it was at Dixie
Oh,
State
yes,
University. Yeah.
yes.
So my wife at the time and I, we were both going to school. She got pregnant with our daughter, and then in 2015, so my ex-wife, has queer family members she's very close with, and in 2015 they released that policy about
Oh, the no baptism. And,
yeah.
What's the policy?
It's been a long time since I've reviewed it, but it's
Yeah.
it's around. They used to allow members of the queer community to participate in church in some way, and then they had removed that. Oh, I think it was be members. I think it must have been like be members of the church.
And the biggest
wasn't
thing
just
was their
baptism.
children were not allowed to be baptized
Yeah,
until they were 18, and they had to denounce their parents.
yeah.
And
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
yeah,
because of that,
Yeah.
she felt very charged. And at the time, I was working in the temple. That was my job, part-time, was I was cleaning the St. George temple. And there was a lot of things in that temple that like threw me off. And one of the things was that the chandelier cost $50,000. And I was like, this is supposed to be like this humble place, and it's just not. And if there's a God, he doesn't care about materialistic.
Or she.
Yeah, they, whatever. I don't believe in God personally, but yeah. So I just kind of go with the,
Just
yeah.
joking. Go on.
But anyways, so then my friend who had left the church sent me the CES letter. I read it, and I don't know, again, it was like immediately I was like, oh my God, I hate the person I've become. This is all fake.
you knew
I'm
it.
done.
I knew this all along. You're
Yeah.
thinking to yourself.
Yeah, I was like, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I called my ex-wife and I was like, hey, I don't think Joseph Smith's a prophet. And she was really struggling at the time. And things were okay between us about that. But she was definitely like struggling because she had believed it very devoutly her whole life. And within a month or so, we both were done with the church. We had our records removed.
Okay.
So, Mark Nagel, I think his name was, he was back after that 2015 change. He
Yeah.
was helping people have their names removed with the church and would send
He
like,
started
a
the
letter.
Quit Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually reached out to him personally at the time.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then he had our papers filed, and we told our families, and it was chaos, right? It was a crazy thing. And so everything I just kind of summed up to you in a few minutes, we ended up going on Mormon Stories together and talking about both of our stories. And I think it's a 3-hour thing. So
Yeah, those are pretty long.
Yeah, they're pretty long form. So that happens. The same time, we move up to Utah State University. We're going to school. I'm studying geology at this point, and she's studying it was computer science and then biochemical engineering. So we're really getting into science. And then I'm just unhappy though, like deeply. Like I don't know. This whole time I felt like I was putting on this like performance of what the culture around me was expecting.
Yeah.
Right. And not just like in Mormonism, but like in my friendships, in the roles I was filling.
Yeah.
And so we were at Utah State, and at the time it's now been closed in the last year or so, as you can imagine, but there was the Inclusion Center, right, where you had like LGBTQ plus groups and racial diverse groups, and you could go have resources. And so I started
Back when you could do that in Utah.
Yeah, but
now we're very anti-diversity.
Or anywhere.
Yeah.
You literally, every single DEI program in every university in Utah is gone now.
Yeah.
So as of the last year or two.
Yeah.
And so the program that helped me is gone. It's crazy. It's like I wouldn't be where I'm at now without that support.
And you were at the time sort of figuring out
Gender stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
No. So what were you gonna ask?
I was just going to ask, was that something that was on your radar at a younger age, or was it something you were just realizing then, or like what was the evolution of that?
I never really felt like I do feel like I tried to compensate for. I never felt very like masculine, but I wanted to fit in. Was the thing, and like I don't know. I just feel like my entire life was like trying to put on performances to see what stuck. But I never really felt any like true sense of identity. And when I was in high school, I would wear like girls' clothes and women's clothes and like play around with that. And
in secret.
Like because it wasn't like a dress or whatever. It would just be like I'd wear girls' pants to school and and the cardigan that was from the women's section. Nobody would know.
Yeah,
right? And like have my hair cut kind of like mid-length in a bob and stuff like that. But I just was not.
So you could sort of fly under the radar, but like out.
But I mean, the actual like concept of gender just like wasn't even really part of my language. It was just kind of
that
like,
whole metrosexual guy.
Exactly.
Was so popular. At that time.
And that's definitely a place that I felt like more belonging. Like I didn't have friends who really did it, and also when I was 16, I did realize I was bisexual. So that was like. There's kind of like this mix between.
So you're trying to figure it out. It's like, well, maybe I'm bi.
Well, and it's like, I definitely I was more attracted to women, but I was also attracted to men. So it was just like there was like hints and dusting of it. And then when I actually like started to explore really stepping into that role of like feminization and there was just more me in it. Like I felt like that was just me. Like I didn't, and even now, right? There's so much like internal transphobia, etc., that like you doubt yourself. But then when like I'm in women's spaces, that's my space. Like that's where I feel like I belong. And so around this time, that same time, I told my ex-wife that I was trans and that it was like immediate. Like the second I had the language for it, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. Like I didn't even know you could do that. Like I didn't know you could do that.
Everything clicked.
Yeah,
just
everything,
like this makes sense. All the things I didn't understand, that's what it is.
Right. And it didn't really like hit home. Like I had so much internalized like fear and transphobia and just like honestly self-hatred about that concept until I started hormones like 6 months later. And since then, like it's been 7 years now. And um like it's just not, there's no part of me that would ever not take that pathway. Like that is who I am. Like I have felt so in like very transphobic spaces or like sort of alt-right, like hyper masculine spaces, right? They always talk about like this regret that follows. Like, yeah, you get this euphoria, and I've never had like this really intense, crazy euphoric feeling, but I've just been like, okay, finally.
You
I've
just
been
feel like
good.
this is
Yeah,
yourself.
like this
that's
is me
like,
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was like,
mean,
oh, hi, Jamie. Yeah.
if I couldn't be myself and then I could be myself, it would just be like every day just being able to be myself. I'm like,
Exactly.
this is nice.
It's like, oh my God, I like going to work now. I like existing in this world the same way that I have seen people existing. And it doesn't feel like I'm playing a part, or like I said, watch a movie and I'm like, oh, I could be like that or whatever. It's just like, oh, I can do that. And hormones, like they change your body, they change your brain a lot. And so I had to throw that in because that's definitely like a part of this journey that I've been on.
Can I ask, we talked a little bit about this like in a personal space, just because we are friends and we hung out together one night eating like cheese at your house with your wife and my husband and some other people, and it was lovely. But what I wanted to ask is something about what you just said in terms of like it changes your brain, which for me is just like really fascinating. And actually Murph and I, that's my husband, had this conversation the other day. I said, do you think that you experience the world really differently than I do, like with your male brain, my female brain? I said, like, I'm more likely to cry at certain events. We'll be watching TV and I'm like, and he's like, looks over and I'm just, shut up. You know, there's like those things. He's less likely to cry at things, maybe because of testosterone or whatever. But I'm curious, what the difference is. Like, what do you feel that feels good as like brain changes? To me, that's just fascinating. Outside of Mormonism or whatever, it's just fascinating to me.
There's always some fear in like speaking about this because I don't want to say like there's things that are stereotypically like women or men. And I don't think that I think everybody is going to be different and unique, but I do have like these two realities that I've experienced. And in this current, like following a transition, I feel like, first of all, my emotions and who I am inside has words now. Like I can speak about myself and what I'm feeling and like what I want or what my boundaries are. I can speak about those things. Like before I would speak, but it wouldn't really get the message out of my mind. And everything was sort of like a front this is for me. And I am a trans person, so I don't know. I think for some people, there's a lot of cohesion between testosterone and who they are as an individual. Yeah. And I think for me, there's not. And so that's probably the biggest thing. There's definitely like a sense of like patience and contentment that I feel a lot more. Like I'm a lot more, I've never had the patience to read in my entire life. After starting hormones, I love just sitting and like reading a book or coloring or drawing. Like there's a lot more like internal sort of like patience and appreciation for the things that, are intricate or beautiful or.
So there's stuff you actually get to enjoy that you didn't on the other side.
Yeah, I genuinely feel like, and I'm not trying to sound like I was just some like, ape before this, but like I feel like when I had testosterone, for me personally, I was always chasing like something to crush in some way. Like I always wanted to have a beer in my hand or like climb a mountain or, it sounds funny, but like,
no, it doesn't. The funny thing is like, we've talked a little bit about this and I'm not like trans in like any traditional sense, but as you're talking about, like, I don't know if I have don't think I have more testosterone because I'm like not huge, but like I have very little patience. I have a very short fuse. I do love to read, but I also want to like crush things a lot. And a lot of times in spaces, I feel more comfortable around women in general, but I also like, I will walk into a room and be like, in a meeting at work and be like, this is what I think. And people are like, whoa, that's really assertive. And I'm like,
So more male traits.
yeah, I like,
You're like, this is just me.
yeah,
I'm not being like
I'm just
assertive.
talking.
Yeah, right.
I'm just having an idea.
Right.
And like people have said that to me on multiple occasions where
Yeah.
I'm aggressive or
Right.
assertive. And I'm
Right.
like, am I though? Like,
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, there's for a long time, I think through the feminist movement, there was this idea that women were just small men. And that we were,
Right.
you know, the
Right.
equality meant we truly were equal.
Right.
And now they're willing to come out. And I follow Dr. Stacy Sims, and she's really big into that because she's done a lot of research and she's dedicated to teaching women that like fasting is great for men, not great for women. Cold plunges is good for men, not great for women. Our bodies are different and the hormones make a difference.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I mean, we went to the new F1 movie. Is it F1, the new Formula One?
Yeah.
And there were
car.
3 guys sitting in front of us and they were in that movie. They thought they were in that movie. And I was laughing. I'm sitting behind him because the one guy's like, yeah, I mean, he's like this, you know.
and I'm not like that. Like
Yeah.
those male spaces, I'm like, what the
And then,
fuck?
like
Yeah,
you say, I mean, when they
absolutely.
say there's a chick flicks or, you know, most of the audience was male in this one. There's a difference and that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
I mean, I have,
But then, like you say, then you get the roles put on you that
and
say,
then you don't fit in the
if
box.
you're aggressive, oh, you're not a real woman. It's like, no. We're not going there, you know?
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
that whole thing. Too.
And
It's
then
like,
there is
you're a bitch if you're
Yeah.
aggressive as a female business owner. You're just a fabulous leader if you're a male. So
Exactly.
there's that
Right.
stereotype that goes into it.
It's like, honestly, it's like we're all cakes, right? And hormones to me are maybe like the flour you use in the different cakes.
Yeah.
And everything else that makes you who you are is like every other different thing that you can put in or on
Yeah.
or around a cake.
That's a
Like
really
people
good way
can
of
be
putting
very
it.
different, but hormones do add a certain like foundational ingredient to you that can make you slightly different.
Yeah.
Well,
Look a
and
little more this way or a little
even
more
Yeah,
men
that.
as they
exactly. Yeah.
age, you know, I mean, there's a big thing. Perimenopause is like the number one topic on all podcasts now, I swear. But they say after women go through perimenopause and their estrogen drops, they're like, all of a sudden their brain they're like, oh yeah, F you, get out of my way. And women and men are the same way. Their testosterone drops as they age. And all of
they
a sudden
become
they're
more
crying at the movies.
You
know,
I've heard
And I'm
this.
looking
Yeah.
over going, what are you crying about? What a big deal.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
really interesting.
hormones are a big, it
Yeah.
is a
Hormones do
biological.
affect
Obviously.
all of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know,
So
what I love about the story that you're telling though is the journey of you at 15 going, this isn't me. I can see through you. I see the hypocrisy here and then you're deconstructing what's that all about? Well, who am I? And
Yeah.
if I don't believe this, then what do I believe? I don't know who I am.
right.
And so I can see this whole journey of you deconstructing who I still don't know who I am. And,
Yeah.
you know, and then finally
Yeah.
you're like, I am so comfortable
Yeah, totally.
in who I am now.
And that's, to me, that is testament. Like, I don't need sort of external validation in that. Like, I for so long, I needed that. And in my life now, I am good and I don't need to prove myself, so
Yeah.
to speak. And that's something that I really like. Life always has challenges and struggles, but that to me feels like I've achieved something, is that I feel good and
Yeah.
fine. And that's always been like just a mountain to climb for me. I did want to say though, what's interesting, and we were talking about this earlier for me, is that one of the hardest things about leaving Mormonism was I had just abandoned like all acceptance of supernatural or spiritual or
Oh,
like all fantasy, right? And there was a level of comfort in believing in things believing in like fantasy and having that suspension of disbelief. Yeah. And you know, I definitely have a lot more comfort in various things now. I don't need to get into, but I remember that feeling of loss. And that's kind of where that revelation of like, this is probably why so many Mormons love like Lord of the Rings, for example.
Yeah.
There's definitely like a cross between that, because there's a level of fantasy that plays that you can allow yourself to believe in when you have that sort of faith. I did go down a pathway of just complete sort of rejection of the supernatural and you know, God, and I'm still there. I'm fine with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But I remember definitely a profound like sense of loss when I first sort of went down that path, and it was kind of dark for a while. Like, you know, I wanted to understand. Oh, I've grown up in this hyper religious, comfortable bubble. Even being raised in Oregon versus Utah, you know, where everybody has a purpose, right? Like, I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but we have this like hero complex that I've been fed. And for the majority of people, I don't want to get too dark, but for the majority of people in human history, more people have been born, lived their entire lives in suffering, and then died than not. You know, like the majority of all human beings over the course of human life, right, have suffered. And it's so easy for Mormons, or I mean, people of many faiths, to look at their lives and say, well, everything has a purpose. You know, God cares about me.
Yeah.
And that comes from an immense place of privilege to be able to say like, oh, my life is good enough that I feel a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
That everything has a meaning. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
So abandoning that for me was purposeful. I felt very intentional. I was like, I don't want that anymore. I want to just like, life is something that I was born into, and that's it. You know, life to me doesn't have a purpose. The purpose is what we create.
Yeah.
I love that.
You know, it's the meaning is what we create.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And I had a similar, and I've never, my difference is like, I never really quite came out of that. I still have moments of like gripping fear about not existing. That doesn't mean I'm going to believe in something that is Santa Claus. Santa Claus is nice. It'd be lovely to believe in Santa Claus, but he's not real. So
right.
I am like deeply invested in engaging with reality. And I do like, and there was no trauma in it for me. There was no pushing anything on me. There were no bishops interviews. There was nothing that was horrible about it was just love.
Right.
And like, I'd go in and we'd sing and I'd be like, oh, and there's a story. And when I die, I'm going to heaven and we'll see Jesus and it'll be perfect and eat yummy foods and sit on clouds and sing all day.
Right.
And I lost that. And I have never actually like quite regained. I'm like sad. I really like existing. So I am like super bummed about not existing one day.
Yeah.
And I have my own like, that maybe we'll do like a whole conversation about that.
Yeah, I would love to hear more.
But yeah, that's it. But I'm glad that you have ended up in a good space. And I know your wife and your kid, they're both amazing people, and like hanging out with you guys is fantastic. And all of you are in, it feels like a very, just like a really stable, like one of the most stable spaces I've seen. And there's one instance where like we were camping and mostly your kid was like pretty well behaved. And then she was like, and we were like, what happened? And she's like, she like 7.
So she just turned 10. So at the time she would have been 9.
Yeah. So, but you guys were great. You were just like, she just needs to cry and that's okay. And you like went in the tent and she was like, and you were like, that's okay. You need to cry and crying is okay. And you shut the door and you came out and you're like, she'll be okay. And she was, and she came out and it was like awesome parenting. And she was fine. She came out and sat down with us like a little adult and was just like, I'm fine now. So, and it's so great.
Tell us when you decided to, trans in your career. Where were you in your career?
Okay,
was there anything at work?
Yeah, so I mean, I was going to school and I I was very involved in the geology department at this time. So I had like two years left of school. But I had pretty close relationships with my professors, and so I kind of did it in a sort of calculated sense. And then once I had started, it was like, the dam had broke, and then I just went full out. So oops.
And you were still married at the time? Or
Yeah, so I
you
was still
hadn't gotten
married.
divorced
Yeah,
yet?
no.
Okay.
And
Okay. And your ex-wife at the time
yeah.
was like, I'm
Oh yeah,
fully supportive.
I was gonna say this, yeah.
Yeah.
And props to her, right? So when I just realized that I was trans, I texted her immediately. I was at work and I was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." And she's like, "What's up?" And you can just tell me.
She's like,
Yeah.
pick up some milk and some bread, but what did you need?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I think I'm trans, and she's like, "Okay, great, I support you.
See when you get
We can
home.
talk when you
And
get
she
home."
would be okay with,
Yeah.
like, she would have been
Yeah.
okay with that if everything else was
Yes, yeah.
in a good
So it
spot.
wasn't.
Wow,
that
that's amazing
wasn't
for her. Props
right.
to her.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty
that
cool.
wasn't actually the reason why we ended up splitting up, and it was good. Like now, I mean, it is good as we've grown older to see us go in different places. We're definitely very different people, and we're both much happier and better off.
And your little girl was how old at that time?
She would have been 2.
Okay.
28.
And
So
you're
3.
both still going to school.
Yeah, we're both going to school.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Lots
then
of stuff still
we break
going
up,
on.
and but just before then, I told all of my professors that I was trans because I went to the
Wow.
meeting. Yeah, so I went to like the faculty meeting because I was the undergraduate faculty representative and the president of the geology club. And so I'd go to the faculty meetings and I was like, "Hey, I just want to tell everybody I'm doing this." And I started going by Jay because my dead name, and I'll say it actually, and I know nobody's asking, but it's funny because my dead name is actually Jerem, which is a book from the Book of Mormon.
Oh.
It's like one of the
Good
prophets in
reason
the
to
Book
get rid of
Mormon.
that,
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah. So I was like, well, I need to throw this thing
Need to
out.
get rid of
anyway.
this
Yeah,
name
exactly.
anyway.
Yeah. So I went by Jay for a while, and then I changed it to Jamie. And I told everybody, and it was definitely like mixed reactions, and it was a confusing, like confusing in some ways, like tough time in my life. I remember my my ex-wife's family, she didn't have a very strong reaction to it, and I started to kind of think like, well, this isn't a big deal. This is just like a thing about me. Like, why should anybody have a strong reaction? And my family and her family my siblings didn't, but like my parents and her family had very strong reactions.
Oh, interesting.
And that was definitely really difficult. And with my family, I had to set some really strong boundaries around like, look, at this point with my mother, I was like, if I value you as a person in my life, and if you want to be in my life, this is what's happening. So you can either be supportive and be in my life or not. And I really want you to be supportive, So eventually she came around pretty soon after that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my siblings just immediately were like, "Okay, sis, cool. Like, sounds good." Right.
That's so great.
That's awesome.
So, but then career. So after all of this, I start transitioning. There's the Queer Student Alliance at my university, and I apply and interview for whatever position because I wanted to like be part of the community and give back. And I was able to be president of the Queer Student Alliance within like a month of coming out. So it was literally like nothing. And then
Full in.
right. I was like
Yeah.
running so many events. It was at Utah State University. So, I mean, we had 100 people on average at our events. It was pretty big. And so from then on, I moved into a house with a bunch of other queer people. I had Lydia halftime, and it's just how it's been ever since. So it's not, I will say, I'm a geologist, right? And geologist, you can work in academia. Sometimes you can do consulting, like for an environmental company. A lot of us work in mining. And mining is a very, very typically masculine, very like hyper masculine
Yeah, like sexual
environment.
assault,
Yeah.
hyper masculine. The
Very-
stories that Murph
yeah.
has told me about
Yeah.
what the men are like, and
It can be really challenging.
it can be really.
Yeah.
It's unnerving
physical?
for him.
Is it a
Yeah.
physical, more physical than
It is a very physical job.
interesting?
And that's part of how
Are you
I was
down in the mines? Are you
well, kind of. It's for me.
are you out on job sites type thing?
Yes, yeah. And
Okay.
you are I started in exploration, and there's kind of a few routes you can take, but I ended up leaving school early cuz my ex and my daughter moved to Salt Lake, and I had to come down here for a variety of reasons to help support her. And I was like, well, I can't wait anymore. Some stuff had happened, and I was like, I need to move down. So I just left school, right, and moved to Salt Lake, but and just started working. I got a job at UPS Freight, which was terrible. I worked at Natural Grocers for years, which was awesome. But I just applied for a job in mining because I was like, they pay like 3 times as much as, and they still paid trash, right? But they paid like a more stable income than I could get in most places. And so, but in order to do that job, I mean this with respect, it was just bitch work. Like, it was terrible. Like, I was just covered in mud all the time. I was basically cutting rocks in half for years. And I had minimal opportunities, and I kind of had to earn them and fight for them to go out and work in the fields, and actually prove that I was a geologist. But yeah, the transphobia I faced was painful and difficult, and part of like just like my own pride in this is realizing like it never made me question that part of me. It never made me be like, oh, am I really trans? It was just like, oh my God, is this the right place for me?
Oh.
That was the biggest question.
Oh.
It was never like, oh, should I be this person? And I didn't hide it. I told people. And
good for you. That's brave in that
Yeah,
industry. I know what it's like.
it's tough. Yeah. I mean, like the first guy who trained me was like, what are your pronouns? And I told him, and he's like,
I'm surprised he even
I know,
asked
right?
you.
I know. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. And so I told him, and he's like, I don't believe in that shit. Like, I was
He
like,
asked you,
yeah,
and you
I
said
know.
no?
Yeah,
That was a
exactly.
setup. That was a switch and bait.
Yeah, I was like,
Bait
yeah,
and switch,
you
everything.
literally, are you trying to make me uncomfortable? Yeah. So I've pushed through it. And what's interesting is after 3 years, I was able to become the president of the employee resource group, the global LGBTQ plus employee resource group. So I'm still doing that now. That's a huge part of what I do at work. And it's still tough in different environments, but what I've discovered is like you can create that community. And that's what being queer has it's always been a huge part of it is, chosen families and community support. And it's like I remember being so afraid that nobody would ever love me like this, that I'd be lonely, and it's just amazing. Like, I met my beautiful wife.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's just absolutely gorgeous and a wonderful person and so smart. And I met her at work, and like we work together now every day, so people have told me that it would be difficult, and like it's been hard, but they made it seem like it wouldn't be worth it, and it has been worth it.
Yeah,
because you're who you are.
Yeah, because I'm who I am. I'm
And
happy.
you got
I'm here
Kelsey
today.
out.
I know. I'm like, I mean, yeah, the world
She's
is
smoking hot.
Yeah, she is
Well,
so hot. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Ex-Mormons, they all complain, or I don't know if I should use the word complain, but they struggle with the idea that they have got to deconstruct their religion.
Yeah.
Not who they are.
Yeah.
But they don't know who they are because the church
They've been
told them
told.
this is who you are. So that's enough right there.
Yeah.
Oh, you had to go through that
Yeah.
as well as, and again, who am I?
Yeah.
And so that's amazing how
Well,
strong and your outlook on life.
I mean, I've definitely struggled with depression and
sure.
the worst of it, if you know what I mean. And I think what that's left me with is definitely a sense of like, what is the worst that could happen? Like, what I'm here, so I might as well be me
Yeah.
exists.
You only got one shot.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And
here
that
you are.
I could lose that shot, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to. I'm going to live and I'm going to be the best, you know, the me I want to be. Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so have you found that, because I think that one of the saddest things is when you talked about how you found the community at the school, but now how that has been completely dissolved throughout the nation.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to have kids that don't know where to go, but there are communities being set up to replace those so that kids will have places. It's just going to have to be off campus.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely community building.
Yeah.
Like they did have, you know, they had a Logan Pride Foundation that had a house that you could go, you know, hang out at and spend time with. I actually ran a post-Mormon support group there for a year. It was like a large support group where we would just meet and go over different activities and topics, and it was really helpful. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's been like been taken out of the government and like decentralized from like government and state organizations, universities. But I think there's also sort of like a grassroots that sort of come in and filled that space in as much as it can. Like at Pride this year was like in Utah, it was amazing. It was huge.
Yeah,
and it felt so good. So many people there, so supportive, a really lovely environment. And I happened to be at a booth with Kate.
Yeah.
And people were just coming by and we were just talking and talking and talking all day, listening to stories.
Yep.
And there were so many people there just to support. So there is this sort of, I mean, you can take it from here, but it's going to come back up from here.
Yeah.
Which is really lovely.
I mean, and that's where that is where Pride is rooted. And at this point, it's even better because before it was definitely more fringe and it's, you know, it is grassroots, but it's, there's a lot more people who are not queer phobic, you know, now than there were in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's definitely momentum. And I think I mentioned this but somebody told me after all this changed that Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King were fighting for the same rights 100 years apart. And that is how the fight for equality, you know, for progress, that's how it looks.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always going to be big steps forward and big steps back. But the progress comes with the small steps.
From the people.
Yeah, from the people.
Yeah.
And it always mostly goes in this direction. There may be times, but if you step back, what is the phrase that like arc towards justice?
What is it?
There's an actual quote and my brain is not doing it. Them like, do you know what the quote is?
I'm not
We're
sure.
gonna have to
Give
cut
me a
some
hint.
of this.
What?
It's like the
You can edit this in.
I don't know to edit it. I should look it up on my phone. It's like the moral arc always eventually goes towards justice. That's not how it goes.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Actually, Martin Luther King might have said
Oh, really?
No, I sound like so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because I
No,
don't
you're
think
great.
so.
You're great. Yeah.
But it is basically, or like the moral arc bends towards justice. I think that's what it is.
And then,
Something
I mean,
like
and that is...
Even though in our little lives, it might go like this even.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you look at all of human history, well, actually... Not all of human history.
I mean, there's been regression
history.
at times, and like human history is long. But in our modern trend, and I don't know, we're in a different sort of space of progression than we've ever been before with technology and global connection. Right? That's a huge thing. Is that people who are queer can connect with people who are queer. People who are queer in Utah can connect with queer people in any other place in the entire world, which has never been something they were able to do.
Right.
So there's resources at our disposal, and it's definitely a very scary and dangerous time to be a minority of any kind. You know, and we definitely don't want to downplay that, but you know, a lot of people are good and care about the right things. Like I know I have a team when things go to hell or whatever, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and we all need that right now because things are bonkers, and that we are in a really interesting time, not just in terms of technology, but in terms of everything that's happening. Anecdotally, I don't know if I can say this, like going back to work really quick, and so it's been about an hour, so I'm coughing for one second. We can wrap up. We can keep this or not. I'm just gonna give a really quick anecdote and then we can wrap up.
Yeah.
You're like, what are the fuck are you
no,
gonna
what is
say?
it?
No. So we went to the Christmas party. My husband and I went to the Christmas party with you and your wife last year for work.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
And you, I think generally at work, maybe like you could be your total self at this party and we're wearing a skirt or a dress.
Yeah. Right.
Which was really interesting. We've talked a little bit about what the like mining community is like, like even among geologists or even among like anybody. And like most of the people, everyone was cool. Everyone was cool. But there were a few people that were, I could tell, like I was like, good for her. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really stepping into yourself. And most people were like, hey, whatever. And that's fine. And some of the dudes were like,
I know. Yeah. And
hi.
It's so funny because I am like, I'm just so used to it at this point. And
I thought it was amazing. I was like, fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
And especially like seeing the faces of like, and most people were cool, but some of them like,
it's just,
this is great.
It's also funny because like, and I'm not trying to just put this all on my wife, but there is definitely like an element of beyond just the self-pride that I feel that when I dress comfortably and I be myself and I have my daughter and my wife there, I'm like, these people support me and they love me, and she prefers that I dress this way because she knows that this is how I feel comfortable, but also she's attracted to this. Like, this is just who I am. Like, it's just because your bigotry, or your discomfort, flares up when I'm around doesn't mean that that's the actual feedback that I'm receiving in my life. Like,
you're taking it from the people who matter and what matters to you, and you can filter out the rest.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you have to do with anything in life, right? Like, even your personality. Everybody's going to have a personality that jives with some people and not with others. And, like, as you unfold those layers of who someone is, you'll experience maybe, like, disapproval or disagreement, and you just move on with your life. Like, that's just how it is. But yeah, I did want to say, like, it's also funny because my daughter, right, she's 10 and she has called me mom as long as she could speak, right?
Oh, that's amazing.
And when people, colloquially, right, I say guys, I call people man or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is totally fine, but I just thought it was kind of funny. The other day we were at the drive-thru to get some food, and the person taking our order kept being like, yeah, man, cool, man. Yeah, I got you, man. And I don't correct people because I don't really care. Like, it's whatever. That's just a colloquial thing people say. But my daughter was like, why does that person keep calling you man? Yeah.
That's great.
I know. I just thought, she was like, why don't you correct him? And I was like, oh, you don't need to, honey. It's fine.
But in fairness, I will say man to some of my like to my female friends.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Is like, colloquially, it's not even a big
the
deal.
guys thing. I know there's been a big deal about stop saying guys, but it is just part of our
vernacular, exactly. And again, it like does not faze me like at all. It's just funny to see this 10-year-old sort of be like unapologetically like, why would you do that?
That's
like,
so great.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Just think how that generation that's coming up is going to change the world.
Exactly.
That's so great.
Yeah, and it gives me hope. But yeah, it's like, why do I give a shit what some dude at work thinks?
Well,
when
that's
my
the thing.
daughter
Like you were
calls
saying,
me mom,
when they were uncomfortable shaking your hand, that's their problem.
Yeah.
That's not your problem.
Yeah.
That's for them to go home and struggle.
It's like, oh, sucks to suck.
Have fun tonight.
Exactly.
You're going over your brain.
Yeah. You're like, why are you even worried about it? It doesn't affect you at all. Just settle down, go about your life.
For every person who's uncomfortable around me, there's 10, 20 people who want me to be my best self.
And who matter more.
Yeah. I mean, there are people in this world who would see you to not having sleeves and would feel super uncomfortable.
They're going to judge.
And is that your problem or their problem?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I'm like,
yeah. Sorry, my mind is elevated to the level of deconstructing gender.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And I think, that's a whole, we could have you back. And like, I love the gender discussion because I think it's so multifaceted and like really fascinating to me is as the person that I am. That
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, and I
like,
loved hearing your story when we talked the other day. So maybe the viewers will want to.
Exactly.
maybe we'll have a whole episode just on.
It's your turn next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
No.
I mean, we could even bring more like queer people in to
Yeah.
discuss.
Oh,
if
we
you
will.
want to have a
Sure, yeah.
discussion.
I think it'd be really fun.
great.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool. So I think we can wrap up now. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you so much for being a
Oh,
co-host.
it was so wonderful.
So awesome.
it's always
love
great.
your
I love
story.
getting to know you.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I think we'll say cheers to deconstructing Mormonism and gender.
Wasn't she great? Jamie is so great. And I love her attitude. It really broadens the whole idea of what deconstruction is. For many people who have left a very high demand religion, just having to deconstruct a religion is hard enough, let alone deconstructing your entire life identity. And so she is a perfect example of becoming visible. So it was such a pleasure for me to be a part of that interview with Jamie. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please join me again next week on She Became Visible. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.